Most INFPs have this phase where we quietly decide, yeah, I already know where this is going to go. I know where it ends, so why even try? This could be with relationships, could be business or creative projects. It really doesn't matter. It happens a lot, and we pre-reject ourselves. We stop ourselves before actually being able to get anywhere close to completing whatever that goal is. And psychology has a name for it. It's called Learned Helplessness. What's up? My name's Matt Sherman. Welcome to Geek Psychology. I'm an INFP coach and hypnotist, and we're going to talk about how learned helplessness is applicable to our INFP lives and what we can actually do to use our personality type to play life better. Instead of fighting against our personality type and saying there's nothing I can do, to actually use it. I mean, you can't change personality types anyway, so you might as well learn to love it, right? So once you understand how learned helplessness works, then you can stop letting that feeling of, oh, this is the truth, this is the end, I already know it's going to end this way, derail you. And you can start stacking these tiny wins. You can start working on these mini quests towards your bigger epic quest. That's going to prove your brain wrong. It's going to prove yourself wrong and allow you to prove yourself right. It's going to prove to you that you can do the thing, even if it feels like you cannot. This concept came from an experimentation with dogs. They were trapped in this room. There was a fence or something like that. And every time that they tried to leave it, they got shocked. I'm not advocating animal tests or trials or cruelty. This is just what happened in the past. Another version of this with an elephant. Every time that they tried to get out, they were given a shock. And then eventually they turned off the electricity, they opened the gate, and the dogs decided to not even try to leave. The version with the elephant was a baby elephant in a circus. I think this is what they actually do. They're tied up to a post in the ground and they cannot get out. And then eventually they're growing up. They're this huge elephant attached to this tiny little post. And they don't even try to escape because they've learned that they just can't do it, that there's no point in even trying. And INFPs are not the only people that struggle with this, but I do know that we do struggle with it a lot. Our psyche is structured so that our tertiary function, this is a kind of a weak point within us, the eternal child, it wants to be successful, it wants to be heroic, but it's still a rookie, it's still a newbie within our psyche. And introverted sensing is like this guardian type character. It's about collecting information, experiences from the past, learning from those, learning what is the correct version, what worked, what didn't work, and then applying those to have a more stable, consistent day-to-day reality. It's about not reinventing the wheel. Because this is kind of a weakness for us, it's not one of our strengths. We have a lot of baggage attached to it. The things that happened in our past, we spend a lot of time ruminating over those in a way that is not supportive for us until we learn how to do it otherwise. And then we make value-based assessments on ourselves from it. This thing happened in the past, or I did this thing, or I didn't do this thing, or I couldn't do this thing, which means I am a failure. Because we spend a lot of time in that, and it feels safer than exploring. It feels safer than challenging ourselves. It feels safer than going into the unknown in the hero's journey and embracing the trials and tribulations and the learning process that happens when you leave your comfort zone. Oddly enough, it does feel safe because we're in our minds. We can do anything within our mind, even if it's beat ourselves up again and again for the things that happened in the past. And this reinforces the learned helplessness thought that repeated failure means I should stop trying. When we're talking about what we can do, we want to not focus on introverted sensing. We want to focus on our identity, our introverted feeling, our dominant function, the soul, and the explorer, our auxiliary function, extroverted intuition. The soul is about our values, our conscience. The explorer is about exploring idea space, new possibilities, shaking things up. The more you can live in those two characters, you can have those two characters working together, going on questing adventures, the better off you're going to be. Learning from the past is important, and having gratitude for the things that happened in the past, even if you didn't like what happened. You can still learn the kind of person I do not want to be. This is the kind of person that I do want to be based off that example. And you can put yourself, using the Explorer, into different uncomfortable situations until you learn that actually things can happen differently. You are not fated to one type of experience. In your mind, you're getting confirmation bias. You're getting this, okay, this is how it's always going to work. But that's because you have this limited pool of experiences. When you allow yourself to challenge that and to say, really, is it always like this? Am I always going to get this result? The only way that you would always get the same result is if it were an isolated experiment and you were always doing the same actions and everything was always the same. But the simple fact that you are in a living situation and you can take different actions means that you can get different results. You are part of that system. Allow yourself to change it. And you can change who you are or the actions that you take and the results that you get. And oftentimes, once you get a little bit of feedback that actually this is not how it always works, then you can allow your mind, your unconscious mind, to generalize that it is not always true. Instead of it is always true, you have this little weakness, this little chink in the armor, I guess is what it's called, this little like proof point, let me say that again, that allows you to say, actually, it's not always like this and it can be different. So how am I going to use that information? And instead of learned helplessness, you can have learned hopefulness, and you can use these small wins to retrain your brain and put yourself into different circumstances that helps you have a life that is different than it currently is. Now, maybe your life is perfect, but mine is not. And I know that if I think, I constantly get videos that are like 1,000 views. If I just take that as, well, there's nothing I can do about it, then what's the point in trying, right? But if I take it as, there's something that I can do, little tweaks that I can make, different format approaches, different ways of speaking that open up the possibility of things changing, then there's endless potential and we can lean into curiosity. And curiosity is one of our superpowers. So if this were a client session, we'd probably work together to understand what is the limiting belief, what is the thought or belief or emotions that are holding me back right now for whatever reason, and what can I do today to get some sort of little feedback that is not always true. And that's it. Once you do that enough, you start to gain clarity over that and control over who you are. And you can also lean into the Explorer even more and imagine different possibilities. Put yourself in a bunch of different situations. Imagine and pretend that it's working and see how you feel, and then work back. I was explaining this to someone in Evolve. They had a some sort of assessment that they were going to do. And I told her to go out into the future after it's already been completed in their mind and notice how well it went. Notice the thoughts, notice their posture, the beliefs, and work backwards. Okay, what did you do right before that? What did you do 3/4 of the way through? What did you do halfway through? What were your thoughts? What were your beliefs? What was your breathing, your posture? What were the things that you were saying to yourself? And then a quarter, and then right at the start, and then 15 minutes before. Go through this process, and you'll see that it is largely a matter of your beliefs and your focus and the resourcefulness that comes from the extroverted intuition explorer. If you want to know more about how your brain works as an INFP, check out this video over here with an interview between Dr. Dario Nardi and myself.